Between 1754 and 1800, what was the process of developing an American identity? There were new forms of national culture, even as different regions held on to their positive and negative traditions. Take the French and Indian War, for example. This conflict united the British colonies against a common enemy, French forces supported by various Native American tribes. It was during this time that Benjamin Franklin proposed the Albany Plan of Union in 1754, an early attempt to create a unified government for the colonies. Although it wasn't adopted, it laid the groundwork for future cooperation and a shared sense of purpose. After the war, British policies like the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts started colonial unhappiness. These taxes, imposed without colonial representation, made unity among the wildly different colonies. In response, the Continental Congress met in 1774 to represent colonial interests. Leaders such as John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and Patrick Henry debated strategies that would shape the nation. The Declaration of Independence in 1776, written by Jefferson, proclaimed shared values and a collective desire for freedom. As the nation formed, debates between Federalists and Democratic Republicans shaped political thought. Federalists like Alexander Hamilton and John Adams pushed for a strong central government to maintain order and unity. Meanwhile, Democratic Republicans like Jefferson and James Madison feared that too much federal power could threaten individual liberties. These debates led to the creation of the Bill of Rights in 1791, which guarded freedoms such as speech, religion, and the press. The Bill of Rights became the foundation of American freedoms. The First Amendment, for instance, made sure that citizens could express their ideas, which made a culture of open debate and discussion without fear of government backlash. Religious movements also played a role to shape American culture. The First Great Awakening, which started in the 1730s and lasted into the mid-18th century, focused on personal faith and emotional expression in religion. It drew people from all social classes into a festival style of religion. Preachers like George Whitefield traveled the colonies and held large revivals that drew crowds. This movement helped people to think for themselves and question how they normally acted, which made the foundation for a self-reliant and expressive society. As the nation expanded, relations with Native Americans remained an issue. The Treaty of Greenville in 1795 followed the Battle of Fallen Timbers, where General Mad Anthony Wayne defeated all Native American forces in Ohio. This treaty opened much of Ohio to American settlers, but also showed tension and conflicts over land, which reveals the challenges of coexistence and expansion. Innovation and scientific achievements further shaped the young nation. Benjamin Banneker, an African-American scientist and surveyor, played a crucial role in mapping Washington, D.C. in 1791. He also published almanacs filled with astronomical calculations and essays, which show the intellectual contributions of African Americans and inspired future generations of inventors and thinkers. Civic organizations like the Freemasons influenced social networks and political ideas. Founding fathers such as George Washington and Benjamin Franklin were members. These groups provided spaces for discussion and community connection for men, which built the political and social structure of the new nation. Philosophers and thinkers continued to shape American culture. Thomas Paine, in addition to Common Sense, wrote The Rights of Man, which promoted democratic ideals and opposed authoritarianism. John Locke's ideas about natural rights and government by consent influenced American thought and reinforced principles of liberty and self-governance. Women also made contributions. Esther de Burt Reed organized the Ladies' Association of Philadelphia in 1780 and raised funds to support the Continental Army. Women gathered to sew uniforms and collect donations, which helped the war effort and showed their influence outside the home. Language and dialects evolved and showed regional differences in the nation's new identity. American English began to divide itself from British English. Noah Webster began his work to standardize spelling and grammar and published his American Dictionary of the English Language in 1806. Webster's efforts promoted American usage and helped to unify the language and set it apart from its British version. The struggle for freedom was not limited to debates and policies. In 1800, Gabriel Prosser, an enslaved blacksmith in Virginia, planned a large-scale rebellion to seize Richmond. Although the plan was discovered and stopped, it showed the desire for freedom among enslaved people and the intense tensions about liberty and equality. Music played a powerful role to shape national identity. African American spirituals like Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and Wade in the Water were sung by enslaved people as expressions of hope and resistance. These songs provided a means of communication and solidarity, and laid the groundwork for future American musical genres like gospel and blues, and enriched the nation's cultural diversity. Despite the lofty ideals of freedom and equality, slavery lasted, which made a stark contradiction. Leaders like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson owned enslaved people while they advocated for liberty, which raised questions about the nation's commitment to its principles. This contradiction shows the moral complexities and challenges which face the young nation. Regional differences continued to shape the nation's social and economic structures. In the South, plantation agriculture dominated society, economy, and culture, and relied on enslaved labor. Plantations like Monticello in Virginia and La Grange in Georgia became centers of economic power and social hierarchy. In the North, commerce and industry led to different lifestyles, with cities like New York and Philadelphia as hubs of trade and ideas. The rise of factories in cities like Boston and New York made a more diverse and dynamic culture, which promoted urbanization and industrial growth. International events left their mark on American culture and politics. The French Revolution initially got support from Americans who saw it as similar to their own fight against monarchy. However, as the revolution grew more radical, divisions emerged. Federalists opposed it and feared chaos and instability, while Democratic Republicans like Jefferson stayed supportive, which shaped political discussions and aligned with different visions for the nation's future. The Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798 tested the nation's commitment to free speech and democratic principles. Passed under President John Adams, these laws made it harder for immigrants to become citizens and punished criticism of the government. Opposition led by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison resulted in the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, which argued that states could challenge federal laws they found unconstitutional, which fueled debates that continue about federal authority and individual rights. Figures like Gowan Pamphlet added a balance to the development of American identity. As America's first known ordained Black Baptist preacher, Pamphlet founded the First Baptist Church in Williamsburg, Virginia. Inspired by both the First Great Awakening and the American Revolution, he preached messages of equality and hope to Black Americans, which made community and strength that still endure. Art showed the complex society at work. John Trumbull's painting of George Washington and William Lee shows Washington with his enslaved aide. This artwork shows the contradictions of American life and blends ideals of freedom with the harsh reality of slavery. It serves as a visual narrative of the nation's struggle to balance its lofty principles with actual practices. Literature also shaped national identity. Charles Brockden Brown's Wyland, or The Transformation, An American Tale, is considered the first American Gothic novel. Set in Philadelphia, Brown used supernatural elements to explore themes of transformation and identity, which shows how American writers could make unique stories that reflected the nation's new culture. Similarly, Hector St. John de Crèvecoeur's Letter 3, What is an American? From Letters from an American Farmer, gives a profound definition of American identity. Crèvecoeur describes an American as a new man who blends different backgrounds into one. His work shows the essence of a nation built on diversity and fresh starts, which focuses on the combined nature of American society. In architecture, William Birch's engraving of Girard's Bank, late the Bank of the United States, in 3rd Street, Philadelphia, shows the federal style. This engraving shows the building's classical elements, which symbolize the strength and unity of the new nation. The federal style became a dominant architectural trend, which represented the aspirations of the young republic through orderly and balanced designs. Charles Willson Peale's Portrait of Benjamin Franklin, 1789, further shows national identity, even though Franklin was too sick to model for it. In this picture, Franklin holds a lightning rod tip, while lightning strikes in the background. This image linked American innovation and scientific progress with national pride, and celebrated Franklin's contributions to science, the nation, and the world. All these elements together made American identity, and it is still changing today, from the impact of the French and Indian War to the debates over the Bill of Rights, from the influence of Benjamin Banneker to the planned rebellion by Gabriel Prosser. The nation was shaped by many forces. Figures like Gowan Pamphlet and artworks like Trumbull's painting, Brown's Wyland, Crèvecoeur's letters, and Birch's engraving show depth to this identity, with both progress and challenges that continue. So what does it mean to be an American? It means being part of a story where different cultures, ideas, and voices come together. Developing an American identity was a quest to define and understand a country between 1754 and 1800. The twist is that the very question, what does it mean to be an American, became a feature of the nation's identity, which reflects its journey to embrace diversity and forge unity.